Welcome back to the channel, you Kurd nerds. Today we're going to be sitting down for a full instrument mock check ride. This student, they've already got their private pilot certificate like most of you already have, and they are working through their instrument training under a Part 141 program. Now, they've got the knowledge, like most instrument students do. It's just the confidence and clarity is some of the biggest hurdles. Convincing the DPE, hey, the knowledge I've got up here, I can say it out loud, right? I can get you the information to convince you that I know what I'm talking about. So in today's session, we're going to go deep into how things like your altimeter work. What is reverse sensing? What's the cone of confusion? And how things like WAAS and RAIM keep your GPS honest. Then we're going to put it all together into a little bit of a IFR scenario where we go through lost comms and an approach briefing, etc. Right? This is the kind of prep that separates the study guide pilot from somebody who really understands what's happening in the airplane. So if you're working towards your instrument rating, grab some notes and follow along, because this is exactly the level of understanding you'll need to have before you sit down with your DPE. But before we get into the mock check ride, if you are interested in all the Seaplane stuff, the Lake 200 stuff, the maintenance going on with the Lake 200 right now, it's all been moved over to the Lake Effect Seaplane Adventures here on YouTube. I'll try to have a link somewhere for it. Next up, if you are looking for some help going through any of your ratings, whether it be private pilot, commercial instrument, multi-engine, CFI, CFII, MEI, any of that, I'd like to bring up the sponsor of today's video, and that is Pilot Institute. So they've got all the courses that you need to go from zero to hero, and it's material that I can actually get behind. Like I don't have the time, the resources, nor the skills to make material as good as what they're putting out. So why not just partner with them to bring it to your attention? So if you are looking for ground school material that isn't just going to prep you for the test, if you are looking for ground school material that's going to make you a better and safer pilot, I'll try to have a link down in the description for Pilot Institute. Now let's get into the mock check. Working on instrument. So kind of how'd you get to this point? How's your training been going? What are we looking forward to? Stuff like that.
Yeah. I got my private when I was 17, so 2 years ago, and then I just graduated high school in May, and I'm working through all my ratings, hopefully. So yeah.
Awesome. Is it like big school, small school, Part 61, 141?
I'm a Part 141 student, but it's like a smaller, kind of like it's not a big school, but I'm technically 141 just for instruments, so I didn't have to get the cross-country time though, but yeah.
Fair. I forget what the cross-country time requirement is, but yeah, 141, that is some of the benefits of 141 is they do reduce some of the hour requirements, and it can help keep some of the costs down depending on what rating you're going through. I know that whole you can get your private pilot done in 35 hours thing. Nobody's ever actually done that. But the rest of it though, so I've got your flight plan pulled up. I've got it put into SkyVector and all that jazz. But before we get into it, you've already taken one check ride. But every check ride, it's got three possible outcomes: satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete. Satisfactory really just means that you're consistently within inside standards. Doesn't necessarily mean that you don't momentarily fall outside the standards. But if you do fall outside the standards, you apply a prompt and appropriate correction to get yourself back within the standards. Some of the only things that aren't really wiggle room like that is busting through minimums, right? If we're going down to 200 feet on an ILS and you drop down to 100 and you didn't see the things that you needed to see, you just kind of lost track of time or weren't paying attention, obviously that's a failure. It's dangerous, right? Yeah. It's a danger. That's how you splat into the ground. Unstabilized approach, get it stabilized or go around, things like that. Unsatisfactory really means that you're consistently outside the standards. You're a danger to yourself. You can't keep track of your situational awareness. You're a danger to the national airspace system. You don't know how to respond to basic emergencies. You don't know your airplane. You don't know the rules. Incomplete is really just for illness, weather that, wasn't really forecast. Aircraft airworthiness. Now, if the aircraft ends up unairworthy because you missed something, obviously that's a problem. But if you go out and you look at the airplane and all three tires are flat, I guess we're going to incomplete, right? The example I use is there was a student that was going for an instrument check ride, and right before they went out to the plane, the mechanic went out and put new SD cards in all the avionics. Well, that means the avionics are going to go through an update. The student started the airplane and it said update in progress on the screen. And the student went all the way to taking off with update in progress still on the screen. And at that point, the DP is like, okay, you failed. Because like the airplane's not airworthy. And like, it's pretty embarrassing that we got this far that you didn't.
That's bad.
Right. And I know that's a ridiculous example, but it happens. It shouldn't happen, but it does. So before we dig in any farther, every DP is going to ask, have you read the ACS and you understand the standards you're being held to?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Now, why are we bothering getting an instrument rating? What does getting an instrument rating allow you to do?
Yeah, so having an instrument rating would allow me to fly in weather conditions that are less than VMC, to file an IFR flight plan, to fly through Class A airspace, special VFR at night, and commercial operations that are over 50 nautical miles or at night.
Awesome. So let's say, you're not going for commercial. We can talk about that later. We don't really need to dig into the experience because you're 141. But let's say you get your instrument rating, tomorrow. Yay. And then you, for some reason or another, money, aircraft, just got tired of flying. You don't go flying for like 7 months. Are you allowed to just hop in the airplane and file an IFR flight plan and just go off willy-nilly?
No, so you do have standards that you have to be held to. So for currency, you have to have 6 approaches in the preceding 6 months, and then as well as holds, intercepting, and tracking courses.
All right. So it's been 7 months since your last flight, so you haven't got none of that done. All right. Let's say 7 months ago, you did 6 approaches and holding and intercepting and tracking exactly like 7 months ago. So what do you need to do now?
So the FAA gives you a 6-month grace period. So I would have 6 months after I lose my currency to just hop back up in a plane with a safety pilot or in an approved simulator and get that currency back. And then after those 6 months, I have to do an IPC.
Okay, who can do an IPC?
A CFII can.
Yep. So double I can, technically a DPE if you really want to go through that. Don't
know why you would, but
I recommend against it. But what's the minimum requirements of a pilot to be a safety pilot?
Yeah, so to be a safety pilot, you would have to be able to act as PIC of that aircraft. So obviously a minimum of a private pilot and then approved in that type of aircraft.
Awesome. And that's kind of the weird thing. It's like it says a minimum of, it does specifically say minimum of private pilot and to be able to act as and the idea is to be able to act as PIC.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of a weird one because now that sport pilots can fly damn near anything, I guess October 22nd, sport pilots will be able to fly damn near anything. There still is that limitation that a sport pilot cannot be a safety pilot.
Yep.
Awesome. Now let's dig into the systems. So you've got a G1000 NXI, so it's a real nice avionics package. It does have VORs, it does have ILS, it does have DME, right? All in the back end of it. But before we dig into that, let's talk about just the kind of brains that are providing you the gyroscopic and pitot-static information. So let's say we get into the airplane and you power it up and you see a red X over the attitude indicator, the horizontal situation indicator, or the HSI, and the turn and bank coordinator, right? The little ball up at the top with the little diamond and whatnot. It's just red X's over those. Which computer isn't turning on?
So if I don't have an attitude indicator, HSI, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, attitude indicator, HSI, bank indicator.
Yeah. So that would most likely be my AHRS attitude heading and reference system that has failed. So you could check the LRUs to verify that maybe it's not working and give it a few minutes, but we're not flying without AHRS. So yeah.
Obviously. What's the brain that handles all the pitot-static stuff?
The air data computer.
Yeah, the air data computer. So if we see any issues with those, obviously, we're not going flying. Now, I know it really depends on the year of the Cessna, but most of them have standby indicators. Yours has standby indicators, correct?
We do, yeah.
Okay. Is this airplane legal to go fly into IFR conditions if those standby indicators aren't working?
If the standbys are not working?
Yeah, if the standbys aren't working. I mean, you don't know, I mean, I'm going to be honest. There's times I've gone to my airplane and there's something that's broken in it. And I'm like, is it legal? I don't know. I got to look it up.
Yeah.
Do you know where you would look?
Yeah, so I would start with 91205, which is all of, atomatal flames, flaps, grab card, all that good stuff. And then I would go to the kinds of equipment list, or we have one in the POH for our aircraft, and look through that. And then if it's not on there, you could verify that it's placarded and labeled ANOP and then fly without it. But personally, I would never fly without a standby.
Well, let's go take a
IMC,
look at.
no.
Do you have access to like a digital POH or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go take a look. See if this airplane's legal without those standby. Let's say that the standby attitude indicator is just down there wobbling around. It's doing the spin me right round, baby. It's just wobbling all over the place.
Okay. What part of the POH? Oh, the equipment list, section 6. Yeah, so in section 6 of the POH for this aircraft, it says that we need a standby airspeed indicator and attitude indicator.
Awesome. For IFR.
And a standby altimeter, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I'm just looking at a generic Cessna 172 POH, seeing if I could track it down. So we know how to use the KOEL, right? We know 91205, because let's be honest. If something's broken, we're going to look it up. I'm not just going to be sitting there at the airplane like, let's see if I can memorize. Yeah, no. I'm
Right
going
out
to look it up.
on my whiteboard.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There have been times where I use my window as like a whiteboard and stuff to draw stuff because I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember that. Remember, always use dry erase marker. Perfect. We understand. Can this airplane fly without it? Now, how does that standby altimeter work? Can you kind of break that down for me?
Yeah. The standby altimeter.
Yeah, so the internal
so
mechanics, the functionings of how this thing works. How is it actually giving me this information? It's obviously not magic in there.
Yeah, so generally your altimeter has a, we have to have for IFR flight an altimeter that's barosensitive, so we would plug in the pressure, altimeter setting at our airport, and then that would correct the inside, and then it's basically measuring the standard altimeter setting of 29 or 0.9 or 2 against what we've put in to give us an altitude that we're currently at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to, I feel like you tried to give it a little bit more of a complex spin to it and be like, oh yeah, look what I know. It's a balloon, right? A balloon has a standard set of pressure inside it. As I climb, the balloon expands because the pressure reduces outside of it. That expansion of that balloon pushes on some gears and levers and shows me some needles on the face of it.
Okay, that's all it is. So inside we have a pressure in there, and then as we climb and descend, it adjusts accordingly.
Yeah,
Does
so
that make sense?
I'm assuming at one point in time you've taken a bag of potato chips up flying with you, right?
Yeah.
All right. Or even better, you've probably had a plastic water bottle. You've taken some water out of it up at altitude, right? And then you go and land and the bottle's all crushed, but you didn't crush it, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on inside your altimeter.
Okay.
right? It's just a known pressure that's inside the water bottle, and it expands and contracts, pushing on some gears and levers, and makes something indicate on the dial.
Okay.
Now let's get into the little bit more of the complex instruments that are actually, kind of mounted behind those big old fancy screens you've got. So you've got VORs on this in that G1000. How do those VORs work? Can you kind of describe to me how a VOR works?
Yeah, so a VOR is like, sorry, let me regather my thoughts. So basically,
No.
when you have a VOR, we have VOR stations that are ground-based. So this is a ground-based navigational system. And then we have receivers in our aircraft. So what we do is we tune in the frequency of this VOR, and then when we align the radial, the VOR is literally sending out one thing to find out where we are, and then another one to find out the radial, and then another one to find out the exact area. And that's broadly how VORs work. Yeah.
Well, let's open up Microsoft Paint just to kind of drill home this idea, right? So I see you were at the right, you're on the right track, right? The VOR does send out two different signals, okay? So this is kind of what a VOR looks like. A lot of people call them beepy boopy sombreros because when you listen to them, they go beep, 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 right? And it kind of looks like a sombrero on the ground. So they've got these little stations on the side of them as well that go all the way around it, all the way, because we're looking at it from the side, right?
Yep.
So this big old cone in the middle is going to send out what we would call a standing wave, okay? So this big old cone is going to send out in all directions. It's going to send out the exact same signal, a standing wave. So it's going to send it out kind of like this, okay? We're going to pretend that each one of those waves are the exact same size because, it has to. But then the little poles on the side are going to send out another signal slightly out of phase, okay? Or even 180 degrees out of phase. So let's say this one right here is the 180 radial. So it's going to be 180 degrees out of phase from the standing wave. And that is really how our receiver is figuring out where we are from the VOR, is the difference between the standing wave and the variable wave. Because if we go to the other side of the VOR, let's say that it's the 360 or the zero, the 360 degree radial. All right. The standing wave that comes out from the center would line up exactly with the wave that comes out of the little pole on the side.
Yep.
So we see how. Now, what are some of the limitations of a VOR? I know you brought up the fact that it's ground-based.
Yeah, it's ground-based. So obviously, here in Colorado, they're kind of tough with the mountains because if there's an obstruction in the way, we are not receiving the signal.
Okay, so they're line of sight.
Yep.
Anything else?
Oh, they're also a slant distance. So, it's measuring the distance at a slant as opposed to direct distance to the VOR. And then we don't have to deal with this, but as you get over the VOR, you can experience reverse sensing. We don't really have that problem in the G1000, but that would be a problem if you were flying in a 6-pack.
Yeah, so I mean, it's less about flying over top of it, right? So you might be kind of, and this is one of my...
Cone of confusion.
Yeah, so the cone of confusion, right? Cone of confusion, and this is kind of one of the issues I do have with training in a G1000 primarily for your instrument. Yes, the G1000, it's great. I love it. I can't afford it. And most people can't, right? And I've got buddies that they did all their IFR training in a G1000. And they don't want to buy an airplane because they're terrified of flying anything else. They've never flown anything but glass, right? So they end up kind of conflating some of those issues that old systems have, right? So you brought up reverse sensing, and it seemed like there might be a confusion between reverse sensing and cone of confusion, okay? Because the G1000 can be impacted by the cone of confusion, and it does happen when you start flying over top of the VOR, right? So can you describe to me what cone of confusion is?
Yeah, so the cone of confusion as you're flying closer to or over the VOR, it has a tendency, the like needle starts to flip and like go just move directions as you're getting closer to it, and you just have to maintain your present heading as you fly over it, and then it'll go back. I guess it's not a big deal, but it'll just throw you off for a second there if you're not expecting it.
Yeah, yeah. I know I was going through my instrument training or it was instrument training in a multi-engine, and there was a lot going on at one time, and my instructor, to mess with me, was like, "Hey man, the needle's over there." But we were right on top of the VOR, but I was so task saturated. I was like, "Oh crap, the needle is," and just like cranked on over to try and get it. He's like, "No, no, 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 stop. Like, it's a code of confusion. I'm trying to fuck with you." So, it was kind of funny. Now, reverse sensing. Have you ever flown anything but the G1000?
Yeah, I had never flown a G1000 before instrument. It was like straight six packs for my whole private. So
Oh, awesome. So have you experienced reverse sensing?
yeah, of course.
Awesome. So can the G1000 ever experience reverse sensing?
Yes,
Okay, when?
could.
There's one really specific event, and they're really rare.
Is it on an approach or no?
It is on a style of an approach, yes.
I don't know.
So a back course.
I was gonna say that, and I was
Yep.
like, no. So VOR back courses or
So-
an ILS localizer back courses.
It's a localizer back course, not a VOR back course. There's no such thing as a VOR back course. It's a localizer back course. It's the one time that the G1000 can get reverse sensing.
Would that affect anything? Like, other than if you were, what would happen if we were flying a localizer back course? Anything major?
Well, if you're flying a localizer back course, the needle's going to be reverse, right? So reverse sensing, the needle is showing us where the airplane is, not where the course is.
Yeah.
All right. So that's really the only difference. Does your G1000 have an autopilot?
It does, yeah.
Okay. It has a BC button, doesn't it?
Yep. Back
All right.
course.
If you don't press that button, it won't it will try to fly the back course the same way it would try to fly an ILS. So it would just continue to go off and off and off and off and off.
Okay.
Because it would be trying to catch a needle that it's never going to catch because it doesn't understand that it's reverse sensing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
When I did checks for UND, I was an absolutely miserable instructor because I would give students a DME arc into a back course and they'd ball it up every time.
It's funny.
They didn't think it was funny. Now, you did bring up slant range. Does your G1000 get impacted by slant range?
No, because we can just use the GPS distance in lieu of DME. So it's not really a problem.
Awesome. Now, don't mix up that VORs measure slant range. VOR DME. Okay, I know you're never going to see a DME without a VOR, but let me rephrase that. You might see a DME without a VOR, but then it's going to be attached to an ILS.
Okay.
Right? So slant range is the DME's problem, not the VOR's problem.
Okay.
Does that make sense? They're technically separate instruments.
Cool.
Now, since you don't have DME, we're not really going to dig into it because, yeah. Let's talk about an ILS. What are the three main components of an ILS?
Yeah, so for the three main components of an ILS, we have the localizer and the glide slope. So that's one of them. And then we also have the beacons, or outer markers, middle markers, and then inner markers. And then we have the visual aspect of it, which is like approach lighting systems.
Awesome. So approach lighting system, visual components, right? But what you primarily use in your G1000 is probably some version of RNAV, right?
Yep.
All right. Can you describe to me what RNAV is?
Yeah, RNAV is a very broad kind of umbrella term for area navigation. So any type of area navigation that you might use throughout all right, like parts of your flight.
Okay. What type of RNAV system does your airplane have?
Our aircraft has RAIM as well as WAAS. So
Okay, so it has RAIM as well as WAAS, and those fall under what type of RNAV system?
GPS.
GPS. Awesome. Can you kind of break down how GPS works?
Yeah, so the GPS system is made up of 31 satellites
Some.
are orbiting in the air, and then it basically sends these satellites, or like, yeah, the satellites go directly to our aircraft and then gives us a position of where we are.
Now, is the GPS telling us where our airplane is? Like, are those satellites telling us where the airplane is? So remember, the GPS satellite isn't giving us location data. The GPS satellite has no idea where it is. The satellite
Yeah,
itself is completely unaware of its location. The GPS satellite is purely telling us
where this,
the time in which the signal was sent.
yeah,
That's all the GPS satellite is ever telling us is the time in which the signal was sent. And then our airplane, our G1000, does some really fancy back of the napkin math and says, okay, well, if that satellite is that far away, that satellite's that far away based on time, like, because it sent the signal, let's say, 12:30, and we got the signal at 12:30.0001. Okay, so based on the speed of light in a vacuum and then through the atmosphere, that satellite must be X miles away. That's really how we're figuring out our location.
okay.
So we've got two different types of CDIs that can kind of be presented to us in a G1000. We've got the green one and the purple one, right? What's the big difference between the green one and the purple one?
The purple one is like our GPS navigation, and then the green one is like VORs.
VORs, ILS, ground-based navigation. I remember green, ground-based, because the ground is grass, green. That's how I remember it at the very least. But sure, we understand that it's presenting us two different styles of information. What is from the pilot's perspective, what is the big difference? Let's say I'm using GPS to fly to a VOR, or I'm using VOR to fly to the VOR. What's going to be the big difference between how those needles are presented to me?
I guess they look different.
So they look different, right? As I get closer to the VOR, if I'm using ground-based navigation, what's going to happen to the needle? Is it going to get more, less sensitive, stay the same?
As you get closer, it becomes more sensitive.
Yep. And as you get farther away,
It's less sensitive.
but if I'm using RNAV and GPS, does it change its sensitivity as I fly to and from waypoints?
No.
No. So when does a GPS change its sensitivity?
When you're on an approach.
Okay, there's one other time. So we go from the en route to what phase? The terminal,
Arrival.
right? Terminal, right? And then it goes to the approach phase. So when I'm in the en route, how do I know I'm in the en route phase? What indication is presented to me on my CDI? It's going to say en route on the HSI.
Okay.
Yep. And then when we get to the terminal area, it's going to say terminal. So when you load, like, let's say an LPV approach, right? What does it say on your HSI? It tells you LPV.
Yep.
Now in that same exact spot, because I know you're not, you don't really look at it because you've got other stuff going on. But that's probably the only time you really stare down there going, oh, because I loaded an LPV, now it's presenting me, telling me LPV, right?
Yep.
But if you go through the en route and the terminal phase, it should also display en route and terminal.
Okay.
All right. Now let's say I try to load an LPV approach, well, let's take a step back for a little bit. So you brought up RAIM and WAAS. What are those?
RAIM is receiver autonomous integrity monitoring, and WAAS is a wide area augmentation system.
All right. So how do I know that I have RAIM, or what is RAIM really doing for me?
Yeah, so before every flight, you should be checking your RAIM. You can check it online. We can also check in the G1000 and just compute RAIM during startup and pre-flight. But you're just verifying that there's not going to be any RAIM outages during your flight and that you will have the required navigation.
Okay. So you'll have the required navigational performance?
Yep.
All right.
RNP.
There we go. So I've got a couple of different types of RAIM, right? What are the two different types?
Are you talking about so with RAIM, if you have 4 different satellites, you can get a 3D picture, and then if you have 5, you can get a 3D plus. It'll tell you when one is bad, and then it'll also exclude it. So there's RAIM with fault exclusion, and then just RAIM with it'll just notify you if a satellite is not working.
Yeah, so we've got fault detection and fault exclusion, right? So with your aircraft, it's 4 satellites. Why can we only use 4 satellites? What else does your airplane have that allows you to go down to 4 satellites for fault detection?
We have the baro-sensitive altimeter.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's the altimeter input. It's the baro-aided altimeter. So just because of the fact that your airplane has a sensitive altimeter isn't what it is. It's the fact that your altimeter also talks to your GPS.
Okay.
Right. So let's say, for example, I'm flying around in that 6-pack that you used to fly. I'm assuming it had a Garmin 430.
Yeah.
Right. Did it have G5s in it, or was it all 6-pack?
2 G5s. Well, one of them. The other one was a straight 6-pack, but yeah.
Okay, so the one that was a straight 6-pack probably didn't have a baro-aiding altimeter. The one that had the G5s in it, the G5s can give information to that Garmin 430.
Interesting. Okay.
Does that make sense now?
Yeah, that does.
Right. So if, let's say, for example, you go and buy an airplane, right, that doesn't have a G1000 in it. Because, for example, a G1000 install is $175 grand. I don't know about your financial situation, but I don't have that. So, just so you've got this kind of broader idea that, if you ever want to buy an airplane, it's not going to be a G1000.
What did we call it when the altimeter
baro-aided?
Okay.
Yep. So baro-aided RAIM.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What about WAAS? What is WAAS?
Wide area augmentation system. So it's essentially the same, you have the same satellites orbiting the Earth, but you also have ground-based places, and these satellites are going to our aircraft, and then they're getting sent to this ground area, and then the ground area is correcting it and sending it up to one master satellite. That's then sending it back to our aircraft. That's going to correct all of the errors. So it's just a lot more accurate, essentially.
Yeah, it's more accurate. Awesome. The exact components, it's the way the signal goes is the signals come from just the basic GPS satellites that we're all used to, pretty much the same ones that your phone uses, right? The ground stations receive those signals. The ground stations then send those off to a master station. The master station applies the correction. The master station then sends it up to the geostationary satellite. Geostationary satellite sends the correction data along with more pseudo range data to your aircraft, and your aircraft then applies the correction.
Perfect.
How do you know your airplane's receiving WAAS?
You also check the WAAS in the pre-flight, but it'll also tell you if you have a WAAS failure.
Yeah, it'll tell you if you have a WAAS failure. what are we going to do? Let's say we've started an approach, right? We're past the final approach fix, and I get an LOI flag, loss of integrity. Am I going to continue the approach?
If you're after the final approach fix, no. If you were before and you had time and you felt comfortable with the approach and it was stabilized, you could drop it down to an LP minimums and fly it without vertical guidance.
Let me grab my notes just to make sure I say all of this correctly.
Oh, wait, no, I did get confused. You have 5 minutes of, like, protection after you get an LOI that your WAAS has failed. So if
we're after the final approach fix, it's not going to take us 5 minutes to get to the missed approach point, right?
After the approach fix, you should just land because you have 5 minutes. But if you're before, you need to go missed and find an alternate approach that you can use that's not using GPS because you don't know when that came up and you don't know if you can make it in the 5 minutes that you're given.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the airplane will also tell me, like, hey, you can do these approaches, right? The G1000 is really cool with that because it'll just straight up gray out the ones that you can't do.
Yep.
Right. What I recommend, turn the WAAS off. You can go into the systems menu in the G1000 and just turn it off and go shoot a few approaches like that just so you can see what the airplane will actually do in the event of a WAAS failure.
Yep.
Right? Because, I mean, I was a mean old curmudgeon check pilot at UND that would turn off the WAAS halfway through the flight and see if the students would notice.
Yeah, I had that on my EOC.
Yeah. Because like there's a lot going on right there, especially when you're just about to start an approach, but you got to check it, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me make sure there's not any other fun system stuff that I kind of want to dig into before we start looking at your flight plan and start talking about approaches and departure procedures and what have you. I think yeah, we're solid on there. So let's start talking about your route. So I pulled up your route on SkyVector. And again, like if you need to open up your iPad and stuff like that and actually look at it on there, it's mostly just up here so that anybody who's watching this has context.
For sure.
Okay. So route, it's CFO to Roswell Air Center via the Pikes 3, Pub Victor 611, FTI, KLSV or LVS, correct? Tafoy, Victor 60, OTO, CNX, CME, Roswell.
That's correct. Yeah.
That is awesome. Just making sure I got it all in there correctly. So just for scenario purposes, I'll go ahead and give you a craft clearance, and we'll use that craft clearance as kind of our example as we work through this. So whenever you're ready, let me know.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Cessna 123, you are cleared to Tafoy via the Pikes 3 departure. Climb, maintain 3,000. Expect 7,000 8 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 12345. Squawk 1122. Expect further clearance at Tafoy of 1805 Zulu. Current time 1705 Zulu.
Okay, so I'm cleared direct Tafoy via the Pikes 3 departure, climb 3,000, expect 7,000, frequency 123.5, squawk 1122, expect further clearance at 1805 Zulu.
At what fix?
At Tafoy.
At Tafoy, all right. Only other thing, sorry, my mistake. Pikes 3 as filed Tafoy. So it's not direct Tafoy from the Pikes 3.
Yeah.
All right. Because I just remember when you read it back, you read back direct to Foy. Right?
Okay,
direct to Foy is under the and I know I messed up giving you the clearance by saying, Pikes to Foy as opposed to Pikes 3 as filed to Foy. All right. Awesome. So we're here at Colorado Air and Spaceport, looking at the Pikes 3 departure. So you filed this Pikes 3. Talk to me about it. Or I guess better way to say is give me a briefing on the Pikes 3 departure as if I'm the other pilot in the aircraft and we're going to be doing this.
Yeah, so the Pikes 3 departure is basically we're going to be, sorry, I have to decide which chart I'm going to look at, but they're the same. So you're flying on the 059 radial from the Denver VOR at or above 97, and then to Adane, and then down at 9,000 to Drake, and then to the Pueblo VOR.
Awesome. There's nothing else I really want to talk about on that. We understand how to brief a departure procedure. Now, is this a SID or is this an ODP?
This is a SID.
Awesome. How do you tell the difference between a SID and an ODP?
ODP would have another page, right? It has a graphical and a textual that you can use.
Yeah, it's got graphical and textual. But I mean, just here on the graphical, it would give you one other indication. It would say obstacle.
Okay.
Yeah, it would just say obstacle right up at the top.
Okay, that was my question. Cool.
Awesome. So departing out of here. Now, where'd your thing go? Your route. It's around here somewhere. There it is. You picked 8,000 for your final altitude.
Wait, really?
Oh, this is on the way back. I'm sorry. Nope. Or sorry, that's your alternate. It's your alternate. You picked 6,000. Yep. And then it was 8,000 for your alternate. Sorry, my mistake. So why 6,000? Talk me through the altitude selection.
Wait, altitude? Because I have cruise at 12,000.
What am I missing then?
Was my
I'm looking at
intended
the
altitude.
wrong person's. I see alt 6 on your route.
On mine, it's saying 12. I don't know, maybe I sent you a different.
It's possible, but yeah, I got basic performance profile 6,000. 514 Mike Tango, that's you?
Yeah, I can't see the.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
Exactly.
12,000. No big deal. So why 12,000?
Yeah, so there's a section of a Victor Airway that is 12,000, and with our aircraft service ceiling being 14,000. Yeah.
Okay.
That was just a safe altitude to choose, so 12,000.
Now, let's say ATC says, hey, I need you for traffic. I need you up at 13,000. Would you be able to accept that?
No, because we don't have supplemental oxygen in our
Awesome.
aircraft.
There we go. And also, like, let's be honest, Cessna 17. Well, what is that service ceiling based off of? Is it indicated altitude? So if my airplane service ceiling is 14,500, I can always climb up to 14,500 indicated on my altimeter.
What is the service ceiling? Is it not indicated?
I don't know. I'm asking you. No, it's based on density altitude.
Okay.
Right. So again, your G1000 has a real fun tool in there that'll show you what your current density altitude is, and that's what you should be predicating your service ceiling on.
Okay.
Right. So that was more of what I was looking for, but you went for supplemental oxygen is a perfectly good reason to not go up there. What I was more looking for is you to use the tools in the airplane to be like, no, I'd go to my density altitude page on my G1000 and see what my current density altitude was at my 12,000 to see if I had the room above. Because let's be honest, no, you don't.
1,000 up there, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, we've got on your route this filled in VOR. Why is this one filled in? What's so special about this VOR?
That's a mandatory reporting point.
Okay, do I always have to make that report point?
When you're not in radar contact, you do.
Awesome. So let's say we took off, we did the Pueblo, or the Pikes 3 departure, right? We hit a Dane. They gave us a new frequency. Let's say, contact a center on 119.4, right? So we swap over to 119.4, hit the mic, say, Cessna 123, or center, this is Cessna 123 with you at 12,000. Nobody responds. What now?
You're going to try to make a few more calls, but if nothing happens, you're going to switch back to your other frequency and maybe see if they gave you the wrong frequency, see if you can hear them, and then if not, you're going to proceed with your lost comms procedures.
Okay. One other thing. Check the other push to talk button.
Yeah.
That's like just it'd be real awkward, just like key in the, yeah. Awesome. So we went back to the previous frequency. We checked and made sure our headset was actually plugged in, the volume was turned up, and all that other jazz, right? And then we're gonna go through our lost comms procedures. So we hit a Dane. We're currently climbing through 7,000. Our last controller told us to continue climb to our altitude of 12,000 and radio frequency. So we were climbing through 7, hit a Dane, radio failed, and our last altitude clearance was 12,000. What's your plan?
Yeah, so my plan would be to go through, in terms of the route itself, go through the expected route that we had, what we were being vectored on, what was assigned to us, and then what was filed. So we would probably fly the route just as filed since we didn't have any other thing. And then in terms of altitude, we would choose the highest out of the MEA, what was expected, and what we filed our altitude at, which would most likely be 12,000. So we would proceed on just as filed in this case scenario.
So our last clearance, right, was to Tafoy. That was our clearance limit. So let's say we hit Tafoy. So our clearance limit, our expect further clearance from Tafoy was 1805.
Yeah.
Let's say we are about to hit Tafoy and it is 1750. What's your plan?
Wait, sorry, say that one more time. So we were...
So our clearance limit is Tafoy. Our expect further clearance time is 1905. We're about to reach Tafoy, and it is currently 1750. What are we going to do when we reach Tafoy before our expect further clearance time?
Yeah. We're going to hold and plan to leave the fix as close to as our expect further clearance time as possible.
Awesome. What direction am I going to hold?
Foy doesn't have a hold, right? It would just be like an unpublished one.
Yeah, it'd be an unpublished hold. So what would I do as an unpublished hold if I hadn't gotten any clearance otherwise?
Hold on that radial. It turns
exactly
down to OTO.
Yeah, it'd just be a standard hold.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'd hold inbound because guess what? There was no mountains where I came from. So we'd hold on the inbound radial that we came from, and we'd make right turns. Awesome. So we leave Tafoy at our clearance limit time of 1805, and we continue on to our route. Our filed takes us to CME, or Charlie Mike Echo, is the last route, or is the last fix on our route, correct?
That's correct.
Does an approach start from that fix?
I'm not for sure. Let me check. VOR Bravo into the airport has that fix as the initial approach fix.
Okay. I mean, are we going to... Let's take a look. Make sure we don't have anything else that might be a better option. So, are we going to do the VOR Bravo?
Probably not.
Probably not. So, we reach our clearance limit. Let's say we reached our CME roughly around our time of arrival. But when we look at the weather, we're seeing the wind is... You know, we still have ADS-B in, right? Because, you know, it's the G1000. And we look at the weather based on our ADS-B in, and we see that the wind is like 350 at 12.
Okay.
What is... And it's a 350 at 12 knots, 400-foot ceilings.
Probably runway 35, one of the approaches into there.
All right, so probably one of the 3.5 approaches. I mean, I really only see one, right?
Is the only one, yeah. So
Okay.
the RNAV 35 would be a great choice. LPV.
Awesome. So the RNAV runway 3.5 with LPV minimums. Can you give me a briefing on this one? Again, just as I'm the other pilot, and I know it might seem kind of weird, like why am I briefing my buddy even if they're a pilot?
Fine.
When me and my buddies are out flying, I give them a briefing too. We're in hard IFR because I want to make sure that they're on the same page and they don't think I'm trying to kill them. And if they see me making a mistake, they can back me up.
Yeah, for
All right.
sure. Okay, so we're coming in to the Roswell, New Mexico airport. This is the RNAV runway 35. This plate is within date. We have our WAAS. We're going to verify that channel. Final approach course is 350. Touchdown zone elevation is 3,671. We already have the ATIS. We should be on with approach. Tower will have tuned into our secondary frequency, and then we are heading inbound. We're going to expect our initial approach fix as KDIG, and we're going to be at or above 7,000. Then we're going to descend down to 5,400 by SIBO, which is also our glide path intercept. Then we're going to descend down to our minimums of 3,921. In the event that we go miss, it'll be a climb to 6,000 direct to Hogeg and hold. And then when we look at the taxiways, we can kind of see and expect the PAPIs to the left of our airport, or our runway, so we can expect that. Any questions?
Go ahead.
You can. I was going to say I didn't look over minimum safe altitudes, but I don't think you really brief those. I don't know.
I sometimes bring them up. The only thing I was going to point out is remember we're kind of playing this game of radio failure, right? So I know everyone gets into their habit of just kind of briefing things exactly as they do every time.
Yeah.
You know, so I heard like, hey, we're already on with approach. We've gotten the ATIS. We'll have tower in the secondary. Radio's dead, right? So let's brief what's actually going on, right? Hey, our radio's dead. Our ATIS, we don't have ATIS. We got it through ForeFlight. So we do have a local altimeter setting, but we're not sure about NOTAMs or anything else like that. So if you see something, say something, please speak up.
I forgot we were doing that situation. Yeah. Okay, good point.
All right.
Or we're walking. Let's just hope for the best. Okay.
Yeah. I do bring up MSAs a lot, mainly because like, hey, if I get lost, if I get confused, last thing I want to do is be going back to my plate going, shit, what altitude do I need to go up to?
Definitely should. This is a new airport.
Yeah.
I feel like when you fly in the same areas, you don't really, because you just kind of know them. But yeah.
Believe me, I get it. You know, even as an airline pilot, you know, going into Chicago 5 times in one day, I'm like, it's Chicago. Like we're just... All right. But remember, complacency is where people die. So it might seem ridiculous, like, hey, let's brief it and talk about it, but treat everything as a novel experience, and make sure we don't miss anything. I did like that you told me a story, right? You didn't just read the plate from top to bottom. You told me a story about what our plan is and how we're going to get there. All right. We even talked about the approach lighting system, which way we might turn off. I love it. let's talk about that VOR Bravo though. Now that I know you know how to talk about a GPS approach, the easiest approaches out there. Why is this one a Bravo? Why is this not assigned a runway?
So when an approach is from the beginning of the alphabet, it's because it's not a runway, it's just a circle to land. So it's kind of a runway of your choice.
Okay. So this one's pretty obvious, right? Because it's not lined up at all. This one comes in all kinds of cattywampus. All right. But let's go. This just helps me figure out where we are.
Okay.
Well, let's take a look at, is this the one I want? Oh, come on.
The airport, is it?
I'm looking at SDL, Sierra Delta Lima. And I'm looking at the VOR Alpha at Sierra Delta Lima.
Cool.
This one's not that far off.
No, but it's greater than 30 degrees.
There it is. It's greater than 30 degrees. And I know there's some other ones, like too steep a path. Go ahead.
It's greater than 30 degrees for VORs, and then for... It's a different degree for GPS approaches, right? For them to be circle to lands.
I'll be honest, I'd have to look it up. I would genuinely have to look it up because, I mean, there's not many circling approaches. But when it comes to a VOR, knowing like, hey, why are we not lining up on a runway? I really like that one. Now, so we briefed the approach. Mm-hmm. Let's say we're cooking on down this approach. And I am 10 feet above minimums, and I see some... Oh, is this one? Oh, no approach lighting system on this one. Let's go and instead look at the Roswell ILS 21. So this one has an approach lighting system, correct?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Let's say I'm cooking on down this approach. I get 10 feet above my minimums, and I see some sequential blinking lights, just white sequential lights, one after the other. Can I keep going down once I reach my minimums?
Those are the rabbits. So if you see those, you're cleared to descend another 100 feet AGL. And then if you don't see anything once you're at that altitude, you have to go missed.
Okay, so can I descend 100 feet AGL, or can I descend to 100 feet AGL?
Well, this ILS takes us 200 feet AGL to the minimums, so we would descend 100, and we would be right in the middle.
Okay, so let's say I was doing an ILS, and it took me down to 300 feet AGL.
You can only descend another 100 below minimums.
So it's 100 feet above touchdown zone elevation.
Oh, dang it. Okay.
Yep. That's kind of what I was trying to get us to, is like, okay, is
I really didn't know. I was guessing.
And remember, all of these are I know it sounds a little nitty gritty, but remember, some runways are sloped. Okay, and an AGL is kind of can be taken into account as like, oh, well, you're on approach, right? AGL 10, 20 feet back there is, or half a mile back there could be 100 feet, but AGL over here, it's 300 feet, right? So these are not AGL numbers. They're above touchdown zone elevation numbers.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So this 200 feet, this 200 foot down here that we're seeing, it's 200 feet plus this. So it'd be 3,833. But let's say that there's a mountain or something back there, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Now, I do see that you have an alternate.
I do, yeah.
Do we need one?
Or
I guess the better way to put it is, when would we actually need one?
Yeah. So you need an alternate if the airport that you filed to doesn't have an instrument approach, or if 1 hour before to 1 hour after the forecasted weather is below 2,000 feet ceilings and 3 miles visibility.
All right, so we got that 1, 2, 3 rule. If it doesn't have an approach, now your aircraft is, it's fairly well equipped, right? So you've got you're pretty loose on your available options when it comes to choosing a alternate, right? What does that WAAS capable GPS allow you to do when it comes to choosing an alternate?
Yeah, so because I have a WAAS capable GPS, that means that I can file an alternate that has an RNAV approach. Like that only has an RNAV approach, sorry. But if we didn't have WAAS, we would have to file an alternate with a ground-based navigational approach.
All right. So what does this little A right here mean?
That means that there's non-standard alternate minimums. So if you planned on filing this airport as your alternate, you should take a look into the chart supplements and verify that it's available. Or if you need to raise your minimums, if you're a certain category or anything like that.
Okay. Well, let's go look at what was your alternate? Let me go back to your flight plan and figure out what your actual alternate was.
Yeah,
SRR?
so in my alternate, yep. And then in the remarks, I also put there's only one of the approaches that I'm allowed to shoot as an alternate because one of them, it's not applicable. There's only 2 approaches into this airport. The ILS is not applicable for alternate filing, but the RNAV is. So we can shoot the RNAV approach as a filed alternate.
All right, let's go take a look. What makes that ILS not applicable? Oh, because it says it right there.
And then for the RNAV, if you go to it, it just has the non-standard minimums. And then when you go to the chart supplements, it's only affecting Cat C and D aircrafts, which is not us. So we're good to shoot this approach as our alternate or file it.
Awesome. Love it. Now, let's go and take a look at, again, that VOR. Oh, that's the Scottsdale one. VOR Bravo, right? Mm-hmm. So once I hit CME on my way in on this VOR Bravo, what altitude can I go down to?
Hold on, let me assess this here. At CME, you have to be at or above 6,000 until you're established inbound. Then you can descend down to 5,500.
All right, so I cross over CME on my way inbound. What can I go down to now?
5,000. Oh, wait, minimum, so 4,140.
Yes, 4,140. When am I going to go missed?
When you're over the runway or at like this waypoint it's just to the left of your cursor. I don't know how you say that one, but
Zuzal
Yeah.
or something?
So the 4.2 DME. 4.2 DME.
4.2 DME. Awesome. Now let's say I saw the runway at 4.1 DME. Should I descend? Should I go for it? Just power idle, slip it in, flaps 40?
No.
So how do I decide? What's my kind of deciding factor on when it's safe for me to continue my descent down?
For this, because it's an MDA, you're going to descend down to your MDA. You're going to get to your missed approach point. If you don't see the runway at that point, you go missed. Point blank, period.
Awesome. So I know I'm going to go missed at my missed approach point. But what would be kind of my notification like, hey, anywhere past this point, I shouldn't try to just make it? Because obviously 4.1 DME, that's way too close, right? We're not just gonna dump it and try and make it in, right? So what would be your limit? Like if I was at 3.8 DME, would that be enough? If I was at 3.5? At what point would I say that it would be safe to make a visual descent?
just depends because I would go missed it at that point if you don't see the runway.
Well, I get what you're saying. What I'm saying is on the before your missed approach point, right? Because your missed approach point, from what it looks like it's depicted, your missed approach point is pretty much the runway, right?
Definitely.
Which, not very safe. You've ever heard the phrase visual descent point or VDP?
Yes.
Okay. How would I calculate a VDP for this? Because there's not one published, is there?
No, there's not. Shoot. I don't exactly know how.
So VDP, a real back of the napkin, rule of thumb is divide your minimum descent height, right? Or your MDH, not your MDA, your MDH. So this 469 or 500, whatever you prefer, and divide it by 300. That's going to give you roughly a 3-degree glide path or 3-degree path. Okay. So 500 divided by 300 is ballpark-ish 1.5.
Wait, where did you get the 500? Oh, 469.
Yeah, 469, 500. Like if I'm splitting hairs at that point, like I just need to go missed anyway.
Okay.
So roughly 500 divided by 300 is going to give me ballpark 1.5, right? So 1.5 miles from the pavement is going to be my visual descent point. And I could see based on the ground distance on my chart, 1.5 miles is going to be roughly 2.7 from CME, 2.7 DME from CME.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
So if I don't...
So
go ahead.
it's further away than the point that they were showing, Zoozle or whatever. Yeah.
But it's closer to the VOR. It's further from the runway.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Now, why is this important, right? Because it gives us a stabilized approach path, because that's one of the requirements to descend below the MDA. Can I make a stabilized approach to the pavement with normal maneuvers, right? Is dumping all the flaps, getting full drag, slipping it in, a 90-degree slip, with 60 degrees of bank, is that stable? No.
No.
I mean, could I make it? Man, probably. Should I? No.
Okay.
Right? So that's why we want to make sure we calculate VDPs and know how to calculate them. What I do, if I know I'm going somewhere and I might have to use a non-precision approach, or I might have to use an approach that doesn't have a VDP calculated, I just draw on the approach plate.
Yeah.
VDP 2.7. Boom. Now I know what I can now I know based on my plan. I just scribble on the approach plate. Once new approach plates come out, it's going to wipe out my scribbles anyway.
Okay.
All right.
It's 2.7 miles from the... Oh, because we took 1.5 from 4.2.
Exactly. Okay. So that tells me what's actually going to be presented on my instrument.
Okay.
Right? Because if I'm just 1.5 miles from the runway, I start descending, I'm like, shit, how do I know when I'm 1.5 miles from the runway? Huh.
Yeah.
Right. So it starts to make this approach look a little bit tighter, because you're going from 5,500 all the way down to 4,140 within, 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And if I don't see the runway by this point, even if I do see the runway past it, I'm still going to go missed at the missed approach point. Yeah. Sure, since this one is it's a circling approach, I'm not sure what this exact distance is. So, evaluate appropriately, right?
Yeah.
This runway right here is 13,000 feet. Sure, I'm not going to be doing Pythagorean's theorem and figuring out what this angle is right here.
Okay.
But this runway is 13,000 feet. So if I plan on circling for runway 21, I'm guesstimating that I'm at least a mile away. Right?
Yeah.
So use your better judgment.
Maybe you could. Yeah, I gotcha.
Awesome. Let me. Yeah, going back there. So route selection awesome. You had a plan. The only part that was like a little iffy was I recommend finishing your route to a fix in which an approach starts from. Right? Because when we end up in that lost comms scenario, ATC doesn't really have an idea on where you're going to go. Right? They see you filed to CME. They might expect you to do a VOR Bravo because that's where you filed to.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe after CME, file to the initial approach fix for a route, for an approach that you think you're going to do based on the current forecast weather.
Got it.
Because here's the thing: if ATC doesn't like it, they're going to vector you off of it anyway. Right? Okay. But if you lose your radios, you at least have a plan.
Yeah, because that would be weird. You get over CME and you're like, well, let's go direct a waypoint or something. Okay.
Yeah. And ATC's like, I got no idea what their plan is. I guess everybody go away.
Okay.
But you see how much more inconvenient, and
yeah.
Right. It also helps you with your, reducing the load of what you got to get done. Right. You've already planned to an approach. So now, sure. Do I always do that? No. I'm one of those terrible pilots that files direct and says, ATC, if you don't like it, give me a route. But I'm going to teach y'all to do it the right way.
Okay.
Oh, awesome. So, yeah. So I'm happy where you're at. We had to dig into a little bit. Understanding the old instruments was a little difficult. But again, it's mainly because you don't use them. You don't look at them every day. When was the last time you were out flying around where you like even cross-referenced your altimeter or your attitude indicator down there? Right?
Yeah.
I know I was, when I was training in G1000s, we were flying to like Yuma, which is like a 2.5 hour flight from where we were. And I don't know, I got an hour into the flight and then looked down and saw my attitude indicator had fallen over. I was like, oh, how long has it been like that? Huh. And like, I think the only reason I looked down there is because my snacks were down there.
Okay.
So that's mainly why, there's that little disconnect. It's mainly because you're not using them, you're not looking at them. So just instrument flying handbook, go over the old style instruments again. GPS was pretty solid. VORs, there's a little bit there, that we had to talk about, we had to dig into. So just cone of confusion and reverse sensing got a little mixed up. You knew exactly where to look when it came to failed equipment in your airplane, especially, even in relation to
205 kinds of equipment list, and then placard and label and op. That's it.
Yeah, placard and label and op. So let's put your attitude indicator into account. Let's say that standby attitude indicator had failed. Can you, as the pilot, disable it?
No.
No, because what would it take to disable that attitude indicator?
Removing it?
Either removing it is an option, or disconnecting its vacuum line.
Yeah.
Right? But let's use another piece of equipment, for example. Let's say the G1000 is such a tough one because it's all self-contained.
Yeah. You can give me one in a 6-pack.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, your turn and bank. No, I don't like that one. Your landing light, it's in op.
Okay.
Can you take this thing off into instrument flight rules? Let's say you've got no KOEL.
Okay. So you're going to go to 91205. If it's daytime, from Altimeter flames, obviously I would cross-check this. Like right now, I'd pull up the RAIM, but I'd verify Altimeter flames doesn't have anything for a landing light. Flaps does, but if it's not at night, I'd do that. And then if my aircraft doesn't have a kinds of equipment list, I'd go to the ADs. I'd make sure that they don't require a landing light to be complied with. And then if it's not that, I would go to maintenance and make them placard it and label it in op.
Awesome.
Or
Awesome.
yeah, you can't just yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's for the most part it. Now, I heard you kept bringing up flaps. Is a landing light required for you to just go flying Part 91, Joe Blow, not really doing anything?
I just learned this last night. A landing light isn't. It's landing light for commercial.
Yeah.
Is
Landing
it?
light for hire.
I didn't know that until last night.
Yeah. Do I agree with it? No. I mean, landing at night without lights is it's a lot.
Yeah,
I've had to do it once or twice before, and I don't like it. It's not
yeah.
great.
It's just for
In your
practice.
in your Cessna, remember you, especially on the newer ones, just because your landing light's dead doesn't mean you don't have any other external lights. Go back and press that black button in between the lights back there. It'll turn the courtesy lights on outside.
I didn't know that until I was flying at night a couple weeks ago, and I was trying to get my snacks. And yeah, that was a new one.
Yeah, I bet it was jarring because you turn it on, and you're like, "What's out there?"
Then I kept turning it on and off because I was like, "What?"
Yep. So just remember, like, if you've got other external lighting and your landing light has failed, because like landing lights, they go bad. Well, I guess in your new G1000, they don't go bad because they're LEDs. Those things are never going to go out. But now let's actually talk about a star real quick, because I know like you've probably never done one. You're never going to do one unless you get into jets.
Okay.
But they're part of the instrument training. So
Last
let's
week when I was studying, I got confused. So there's ODPs, obstacle departure procedures, for obviously it's like yeah, and then there's also DPs, which is just departure procedures like broad ones and like what we flew or what I have filed below. It's not ODP. But then do we have that for stars? Is there some type of arrival that's obstacle clearance or is it just stars?
It's just stars, because I mean a star is going to give you the clearance,
Okay.
right?
And the main reason is just ATC workload and to give us a loss comm procedure.
Yep. That's
That's pretty much it.
yep. We're just gonna go to Phoenix.
Okay.
So PHX, and we're gonna go take a peep at a star real quick. Phoenix, we'll go with those are departure procedures. Let's go with the Arlen 4. And I know we're gonna look at it, and you're gonna go, and it's. I guess before we really dig into it, let's pull it up so we're looking at the same thing. Is there anything prohibiting your aircraft from doing this arrival?
Arlen 4. Let me look. We need radar and we need DME, which we could do. Transition for turbojet and turboprop aircrafts. Altitudes are a little high.
Yeah, so we got some high altitudes,
Yeah.
but there's nothing on this chart that specifically says no
No.
props, turbojets,
It-
turbo.
Sometimes they do have that, but this one doesn't.
Awesome. So let's say we got a clearance, and the clearance was cleared via the Blythe 4, proceed direct Blythe. We're currently at 8,000 feet. How would you brief this arrival procedure?
So we were cleared via the. Sorry, just say it one more time.
Sorry, cleared via the Arlen 4, direct Blythe transition.
Yeah, so we're out. Obviously, we were cleared via Blythe 4 transition, but we weren't cleared to descend on it, so we would just be maintaining. They would say descend via if we were cleared to fly both the lateral and the vertical navigation of this, so we would just fly direct to Blythe, and then on that 089er radial all the way down to, well, not down because we're maintaining our altitude, but to Cali, and then just straight in, just as it shows.
All right, awesome. Now, let's say we got cleared descend via. Is there any altitudes that I would descend to?
No. I mean, there's minimum altitudes that you have to be at, but...
All right, well, let's go look at the... Oh, that's departure procedure. Let's go look at... I don't know, the Jessie 3. I'm guessing at this point. Oh, what the hell? All right. Not the Jessie 3. Let me find a...
There's some that have altitudes that, like, you have to reach this fix at this altitude or below a certain altitude.
Yeah. So, what altitude and what airspeed do I need to be at Skull on this arrival?
You have to be at flight level 250 and at 280 knots indicated.
All right. So, what's SNRA? I don't know. SNRRA?
You have to be below flight level 220.
Awesome. And what about here at Hyder?
Wait, sorry, I don't see it.
There you go.
At Hyder, you have to be above 15,000 feet, but below flight level 190 and at 265 knots.
Love it. So we know how to read all the plates. Let's talk about some aeromedical stuff specifically associated with IFR, right? So loss of situational awareness, or what's the words? Not loss of situational awareness.
Like illusions? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, like illusions or spatial disorientation. That's what I'm looking for. Can you describe to me what the leans are and how they might happen?
Yeah, so the leans would be when you're in a prolonged turn and you abruptly move your head during the turn, or just do something to lose situational awareness situational awareness in the turn, and then it causes you to think that you're turning in the opposite direction, essentially.
Okay, so I think you might have kind of tried to blend the leans and the elevator illusion together. Right? So the leans are purely about, hey, I've been turning for a while and now I've stopped turning. My body thinks I'm turning.
So when you're in a prolonged turn, you roll wings level and you get confused because you feel like you're in a turn now and you have a tendency to overcorrect.
Well, it's not just overcorrect. People, especially when they fly older airplanes that have six packs, the attitude indicator is a complex instrument. It is most likely, it's going to be the one that fails. Right? I've flown a lot of six packs, and you know what instrument always fails first? The damn attitude indicator. So people, they'll get to level, and their attitude indicator will show level, but they'll feel like they're not. So like, damn, attitude indicator broke again. So then they'll turn the airplane slightly to make themselves feel level. Well, when I turn an airplane, what happens to my vertical component of lift?
It's lost.
Yeah, I lose some vertical component of lift. So the airplane wants to pitch down, or it wants to descend, really. So how do I stop that? Because I'm a dumb pilot and I don't understand the leans. I pull up. Well, if I'm banked over and I pull up, I start turning. So what is this turning into?
Graveyard spiral.
A graveyard spiral. Awesome. So remember, it's more about ATCs like, hey, Cessna 123, I got some traffic. Can you make a right turn heading of 090? And you're like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. And then they're like, you know what? I still got more traffic. Can you make a right turn heading 180? And they're like, all right, yeah, whatever. Let's make a right turn 180. And they're like, you know what? Keep that coming around 270 for me. Here's fucking 270. And then they're like, you know what? Let's head you back north. All right. You continue that right turn 360 and level out on that heading, and I'll get you inbound whenever I feel like it. So then you level out on the 360 heading, but since you've been in that turn for so long, right? Now your body's like, hey, are we turning? Right? That's really where the leans happen. And the leans very easily end up into a graveyard spiral. Now, what's the difference between a spiral and a spin?
Like a spin is what you enter when you stall the plane while you're uncoordinated, and then you fail to recover. But a graveyard spiral is like a steady and slower descent in a circle. It like nothing's necessarily wrong with the aircraft. You just fail to notice it.
Okay, so let's say, how would you tell the difference between a graveyard spiral and a spin in IFR?
I'm not sure.
It's going to be like if we're fully established in a spin, what's our airspeed going to be at?
Oh, wait, did you mean like a legit spin?
Yeah. Like oh shit, we spun the plane.
Okay, that's why
in
I was confused, 'cause
IFR.
it's obvious, but when you spin a plane, you'll know the attitude indicator's freaking out and you're in a majorly fast descent. Like your indicated airspeed's very fast. You feel it. It feels completely different. But a graveyard spiral might be like a slower, more steady airspeed, just descent in a circle.
Well, let's say I did something real stupid and I got all the way over to 90 degrees of bank in my graveyard spiral. And I just keep pulling and I keep pulling and the airplane just keeps spiraling down. Both attitude indicators are going to be all cattywampus and freaking out.
Your airspeed would be a lot different.
Yeah, so my airspeed in a spin or a spiral, it could be increasing, right? Let's think back to private pilot when you did your first steep turn. It sucked, didn't it?
Yeah.
Probably couldn't maintain altitude to save your life. Airspeed wrapping up through 120 before your flight instructor stopped it, right?
Yeah.
That's a spiral, right? A spin, though, a spin is a stalled condition, right?
You have to spin to spiral. Or, sorry, you have to stall to spin.
Well, yeah, you have to stall to spin, sure.
So
But
you
it's
would know it that.
yeah, so you'd really recognize it by your airspeed, right? Because somebody who's gotten into a graveyard spiral has obviously lost situational awareness. They're completely disoriented. But recovering from a spiral is a whole lot different than recovering from a spin. And if you try to recover from a spiral the same way that you would recover from a spin, you're going to snap the tail off the plane. That's why we're trying to drill down exactly what the difference is. If we are in IFR in a spin, we are in a stalled condition. Our airspeed is going to be hovering right around stall speed. And I know you're thinking, I've done spins in a Cessna. The airspeed gets really fast, really quick. It's because you recover from the spin damn near immediately. And what you're noticing is the airspeed recovering because you've pushed the nose down. But when we end up in an actual fully established spin, we're coming down like a maple leaf that's falling and spinning. You notice how those kind of stay at the same speed? Yeah. When we're in a fully developed, fully established spin, our airspeed is going to stabilize right around stall speed, either slightly above or slightly below, depending on which direction you're spinning, right? And your vertical speed is eventually going to stabilize. Sure, it might stabilize at 2,200 feet per minute down, but it's going to stabilize at 2,200 feet per minute down. A spiral, it's going to depend on how hard are you pulling, how much bank do you have. But a fully developed spin, you're eventually going to get a stabilized airspeed and a stabilized descent rate. And sure, your stall horn might be screaming at you.
Okay.
Right? There was a guy, I hate using this as an example because this guy, I wouldn't want anybody using my worst day for content, but there's a video out there where a guy got into a spin in IFR and he kept trying to use the graveyard spiral recovery, which is just bring the wings level, right? He got into a spin in IFR and he thought he was in a graveyard spiral, so he kept trying to just bank out of it and go wings level. What happens if I try to bank out of a spin?
It gets worse. Yeah,
it gets worse. It's going to tighten up the rate of rotation. It's going to increase your descent rate. Well, this guy, ATC, had to talk him through a spin recovery to get him to get his airplane back under control before he hit the ground. Which is why I like to really dig in. What's the difference between a spiral and a spin in IFR conditions? Because most people, if you've done spins, you do them in VFR because you should not be doing them in IFR.
Yeah.
But understanding what your instruments are going to display to you in a spin, because sure, Cessna, Cherokee, it's going to recover from a spin and you're going to be just fine. Like, let go of the controls, tie your shoe, it's going to recover most likely all on its own. But you get into like a Mooney or you get into something faster. Heaven forbid you're in like a Cessna 337 and you get into a spin. They're not going to recover on their own, and you're going to need to identify, am I in a spin or am I in a spiral based on what the instruments are displaying to me.
Okay.
All right. Now let's talk about, since you're a private pilot, you can carry passengers with you. If you had a passenger that was, let's say, sitting in the right seat, kind of struggling to catch their breath, they weren't really completing their sentences, and they just seem to be freaking out a little bit, what might they be experiencing, and how could you help them through it?
Hypoxia, or a type of lack of oxygen. So things that we could do to kind of alleviate this would be lower our altitude if possible, and as soon as practicable. Yeah.
Okay, so they're more breathing rapidly, and you feel fine. They don't look blue or anything like that. They're like, "What are you doing? Why are we flying this direction? What might that be? You ever heard of hyperventilation?
Yeah.
All right, that's kind of what's going on, right? They're struggling to catch their breath. They're not really completing their sentences. They seem to be freaking out a little bit. So how could we help somebody who's hyperventilating?
Is it like the bag in the movies where they like...
Well, do you carry a bag around in your flight bag?
I guess like controlled breathing, slower, longer, deeper breaths.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. You could kind of coach them like, hey, man, you need to calm down. You need to breathe, slow down. Have you ever tried to do that have you ever tried to tell somebody who's freaking out to calm down?
Doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It's like telling people not to look down when like they definitely should not look down. What are they going to do? They're going to look down, right? Give them something to do. Okay. It's my biggest bit of advice when it comes to a passenger that's hyperventilating. Give them a task, because most people start freaking out because they feel as if they've lost control of what they can do to prevent themselves from getting into danger or getting hurt. Right? That's why most people are afraid of flying. They're like, I'm not in control. It's a control problem. So give them a sense of control. What I usually do is I give them the checklist. I'll just be like, hey, we're going to be landing in the next like 20 minutes. Can you help me through the landing checklist?
Okay.
All right. Another way, if you know you're not going to be landing anytime soon, start singing a song with them. Get something that forces them to slow down their breathing instead of just saying, hey, man, calm down. Get your shit together. Right?
Okay, so it's not, they're just hyperventilating because they're worried in this scenario. It's not like any, okay.
Yeah.
I was like going through everything. I was like, man, what could it be?
Yeah. So, because let's be honest, hyperventilation is going to be more likely going to happen than hypoxia, right? Like, I've been flying for a decade at this point, and I have never once seen somebody experience hypoxia. Yeah, there are some pilots online that like they have current medical issues and whatnot that they get hypoxia at like 8,000 feet, so they always fly around with oxygen. I was the only one I know of that's ever experienced hypoxia.
Interesting.
All right. So if you got somebody that's trying to catch their breath, that doesn't seem that like they could complete their sentences, they're freaking out, they're probably going to start experiencing some hyperventilation, right? And I don't know about you, but I don't carry around bags in my flight bag.
No.
Right. Like every once in a while I'll carry around like a sick bag in the event that somebody might get sick. But like, again, most of the time I'm like, I don't have one. Stick your head out the window. Now What about somebody who'd be experiencing hypoxia? Like, let's say you turn the heat on, and all of a sudden your passenger just starts giggling over everything. What kind of hypoxia might this be, given your airplane and its systems?
You turned the heat on?
Mm-hmm. So where does your airplane get its heat from?
Does it have something to do with carbon monoxide poisoning? Are we getting
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah, it's carbon monoxide poisoning, right?
Yeah. Open the windows, descend, land as soon as practicable.
Turn the heat off,
Yeah,
right? Let's
definitely.
get rid of the source. Because what's happening when I turn the heat on in a Cessna 172 and
It's
people start...
taking out air from the area surrounding your engine, which could also have carbon monoxide in it.
Now, is it just from around your engine? It specifically takes the air from around the exhaust manifold.
Exhaust manifold. Okay.
Yeah. So so when you do your pre-flight and you see a little exhaust pipe hanging down, if you follow that exhaust pipe up just, I don't know, 6 to 8 inches, you're going to see a can on it. That can has a little hole on the top that has an orange tube attached to it. That orange tube is the heat for your airplane, for the cabin. So if there's a crack in the pipe inside that can, it's going to be pumping exhaust straight into the cabin.
Cool.
Right? So that's why I was like, oh yeah, you turn the heat on, right? Let's take a look at exhaust. I'm just going to try and find a quick little picture. So this is the exhaust system of your 172. So these silver pipes right here, this is where the exhaust comes out. You see that orange tube? That orange tube goes straight into the cabin. So inside this can right here, these pipes go into it, and these pipes get hot, right? Because your exhaust gas temperature, you've seen it, you've leaned your airplane out. The exhaust gas temperature, which is measured by these little probes right here, is like 1600 degrees. So just imagine how hot this pipe is.
Yep.
Well, this pipe goes into this can, fresh air comes through it, pumps it into your cabin. So if there's a crack in this pipe inside this can, it's going to be taking that hot exhaust into the cabin with it. That's where you're getting that carbon monoxide poisoning from. Right?
Okay.
This is another perfect example of it. Right? So here's the exhaust that comes from the engine. This is that little shroud. So inside there is where the hot air comes from.
Okay.
You can see like a little diagram.
Yeah.
So remember, if I ever experience, like if I turn the heat on and start seeing my passengers, getting a little loopy, maybe their lips start turning blue, turn the heat off. Okay. Let's talk about icing conditions. Does the FAA define icing conditions?
I mean, there is icing and there's conditions that it forms in, yeah.
But is there any, like if you were to open up the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, could you find a definition for known icing conditions?
No.
No, it doesn't exist. It's what's conducive to icing, and it's vague enough to get yourself in trouble, right? So based on your aeronautical decision making and your understanding of the conditions conducive to icing, when would you say that icing would be a genuine concern?
When the temperature and the dew point are getting close together, and especially winds aloft temperatures, and then when we have visible moisture, so freezing temperatures and visible moisture.
Okay, so let's say that the temperature is, I don't know, 28 degrees Celsius, dew point's 27 degrees Celsius. Am I concerned about icing in these conditions?
28 and 27.
Celsius.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you kind of explain to me why?
Why? What?
Yeah, why would I be concerned about icing at that temperature? It's pretty warm, isn't it? 28 degrees Celsius, 27 degrees Celsius?
Yeah, there's some reason it's when the temperature and dew point are close together, and then something about it like 32 degrees. There's also,
So temperature and dew point being close together, that's just telling me that when moisture will condense, right?
yeah,
Right. So if I have a 20, so if it's 28 degrees Celsius outside, my dew point is 27 degrees Celsius. That lets me know that if I cool down this mass of air one more degree, I will have visible moisture.
yep,
Does that mean I have icing conditions?
no,
No, it does not mean I have icing conditions. What else do I need for icing conditions? Freezing temperatures,
freeze. Yeah,
right? So it's dew point and temperature, current temperature and dew point close together, and condition, and aircraft surface being below zero, at or below zero, right? You're not really going to be concerned about that. You don't fly fast enough. You don't put cold enough fuel. You don't go high enough for your airplane to be colder than ambient temperature, right? So you're more interested in like temperature dew point spread being close together and a temperature below at or below freezing, right? So if I have a temperature, current temperature is 1 degrees, dew point is negative 20. Am I concerned about icing conditions?
no,
No. But if temperature's 1 degree or temperature's like 5 degrees Celsius and dew point is 0 degrees Celsius, am I concerned about icing conditions?
yes.
All right. What altitude in that scenario, right? Current temperature on the ground, 5 degrees Celsius, dew point, 0 degrees Celsius. What altitude might I expect icing conditions to occur?
Yeah, so general rule of thumb, a standard lapse rate would be 3 degrees per every 1,000 feet. So, or 2 degrees per 1,000 feet. But I was listening to the audiobook that Jason from Mike Fly Alpha,
M0, yeah. Okay.
said three. It said 3 degrees today. I was listening to that this morning, and I was like, it's always 2 degrees.
He's talking about Fahrenheit, and he didn't clarify that. Because
'Cause
Fahrenheit
I
is like
was
2.78 degrees per 1,000 feet. And I'm like,
that confused me this morning because I was like, no, it's 2 degrees for every 1,000 feet, and then okay,
I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says or does.
well, I was listening to that today, and it said 3 degrees on my run, and I was like, what? But
Yeah.
okay, then I'll
It's Fahrenheit. He's talking about freedom units, as opposed to what the rest of aviation uses.
that's funny.
So
So anyway, it's 2 degrees for every 1,000 feet. So you would subtract 2 degrees from the ground level all the way up. And yeah, we
okay,
actually had an IMC day here yesterday, which is rare in Colorado because when the temperature and dew point are that close together, you normally have freezing levels or
yeah,
temperatures like always. So it's kind of cool.
all right. Oh, so that was your first bit of actual IFR?
I I had 2.5 logged before that, and we were gonna go up, and then we didn't have a standby battery in the aircraft that we were flying in.
Oh, for the
Yesterday.
backup battery for the G1000.
Yeah, we didn't have a standby, so
Oh, yeah, that's kind of required.
it was sad. And then
Yeah.
we got switched to a different aircraft, and their GPS database wasn't updated.
Well, file VOR.
Cut off.
Yeah, I mean, I flew my airplane from Kansas to Wisconsin when I bought it, VOR to VOR, ground-based navigation, hard IFR the entire way. Go practice, right?
Yeah.
It sucked. Took me 9 hours because I had to, I had to, like 3 or 4 fuel stops. It was a very unpleasant experience. But I got my airplane home. Didn't have to hire a ferry pilot. So back to icing conditions. What conditions would be more likely to occur, or would clear icing be more likely to occur?
That's a good question.
So how does
Clear
clear icing form?
Clear versus rhyme. I can tell you what they are. They
Yeah, what they
form.
look like, sure. So clear
Oh,
icing forms when a supercooled liquid water droplet impacts your airplane. So a liquid water droplet that is cooled below freezing, but since it doesn't have some kind of condensation nuclei or something to freeze to, right? It's not frozen. But once it hits your airplane, congratulations, your airplane is now the condensation nuclei. It slides back and freezes along your airplane.
Yeah.
That's how we get clear icing.
That would generally mean that there's a temperature inversion when you have those.
Yep,
because so
yeah.
Try to climb if you can, but yeah.
Let's be honest. This is Cessna. You're not climbing out icing conditions.
Try to land.
Yeah. Now, how would you change? Would you change the way that you fly an airplane or land this airplane in the event that you did start to develop ice on it?
Yeah, you definitely come in. Your stall speed is going to be a lot higher, so you're going to want to come into your approach and landing a lot faster, just to kind of counteract that.
So, do you have a ballpark number? Would you still use flaps?
I wouldn't retract any flaps.
No. Would you add flaps?
No.
No. Why wouldn't? Well, you're correct. We wouldn't add flaps. Have you read through that section in your POH?
No. What is it?
All right. It's in your emergency section. I forget exactly the page, but really it says like if ice accretion has occurred or if you have ice accruing on the airplane, try and come in at roughly 85 knots. Don't use flaps. Because if you drop flaps, you're going to, the ice could block out the tail. Right? So it's less about the ice binding up in your flaps. Whatever. The electric motor's strong enough and you're not going to accrue enough ice on your airplane that it's going to cause a concern like that. It's more about the fact that you don't understand. You now are flying around in an unknown aerodynamic shape or lack of aerodynamic shape. And you don't know what's going to happen to the downwash off of your flaps when it hits your elevator or when it hits your horizontal stabilizer. And you could stall the tail.
Yeah.
Right? You could blank out the tail. Okay. Now, RAIM icing, that's the other kind of option of icing conditions. When is that most likely going to occur?
It's a thicker, more visible icing. And if it's not super cold liquid droplets, then it would be through... I'm not sure.
It's kind of misty conditions is when it occurs.
Yeah.
Right? Have you ever driven through freezing fog?
Yeah.
Right? Or gone out on a run when it's really cold and you end up with the ice crystals in your eyebrows?
Yeah.
That's RAIM ice. Right? So
Okay.
it's the little bits of moisture freezing on contact.
It would just be even colder weather.
Yes, so
Kind of.
even colder weather, but less about rain, more about mist, more about freezing fog, right?
Yep.
So more about clouds.
Flying through the clouds. Okay.
Yeah, flying.
Cool.
Now, have you ever picked up any kind of ice, whether it be driving, flying?
No. Maybe. I don't think so. Driving.
I mean, I know it seems weird, but like if there's fog on the ground, the conditions are, and if there's fog on the ground, it's below freezing. Right?
Yeah.
So what I would say, weather seems like we probably need to crack open the weather section of the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge before we run into the Checkride. Right?
Okay.
So just read through that section. If you want to dig more into weather, there's the Aviation Weather Handbook as well.
Okay.
All right. Now, did you have anything specific, any questions that you were like, hey, I'm studying this. I'm lost in the sauce. I got no idea what this is talking about.
Kind of just on my flight plan that I made. I'm just not sure if it's like a good route. I have us going like a little to the west, mostly to stay on airways. But why? I'm confused because like, I don't know if you're looking at it, but
Yeah, I got it pulled up right here.
do you see like I kind of go out west to like Albuquerque type area when I could have just gone more direct, but it's for an MOA, which I know isn't a problem, but I'm more confused. Can I just file them direct?
So let's take a
So
look at
bad.
the let's take a look at the chart again, right? What is this right here?
That's an off-route obstacle clearance altitude. But this is the thing is that, like on ForeFlight, when you use like a hazardous feature or like when you cross-check it with the VFR sectional, you know that you're going to be at safe altitude. But how do you prove that it's safe to fly below the Aroka on your route? You know?
I mean, you can't, because the idea is like, well, what am I going to do in the event that I lose communications? Right? If ATC wants you to cut the corner, they'll vector you to cut the corner. There's nothing wrong, and it's kind of why a lot of pilots, like especially in general aviation, they'll avoid doing IFR at all costs because they recognize that, like, hey, look, this IFR route that I would have to file for me to, be safe, adds 30 miles to my route. And that, if I'm only doing 100 miles an hour, that's adding 15 minutes or so to my route, right? So there's nothing wrong with this little jaunt out. This little jaunt out ensures that you maintain nav coverage, ensures that you maintain radio coverage, ensures that you can maintain, the ATC knows where you're at. You've got a plan in the event of a radio failure. So I wouldn't say that there's anything bad about your route. I mean, sure, yeah, technically you could go direct to Anto and then direct there. But I mean, what's the value added with that?
Yeah.
As opposed to just staying on routes.
Staying on airways where we're insured everything. We have a plan. Okay.
Right.
Cool.
And I mean, you could even, if DP even asks, like, hey, look, this kind of jaunts out to the left. Like, what's the point? Like, you've got a nice airplane. It's like, well, if I lose, if for some reason we lose GPS, right? GPS outages happen, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have a backup RNAV system? No, you don't. So this route ensures that in the event that there is a GPS outage or you do lose WAAS or something along your route for some reason or another, you've got a backup route.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then further up on the, like north on the route by like the CIM VOR, just below that altitude is 12,000. But like realistically, I mean, I've flown to like 11,000 in a 172, but like, I don't know if we could get the climb gradient with the density altitude to get to 12,000, but I don't know what else to do with the flight plan,
11.6. Well, what is the other altitude below it?
Well, we could use 11,100 because we won't be using ground-based navigation. We can just navigate waypoint to waypoint, and we'd still be ensuring obstacle clearance.
Yeah, because I mean, or you could even do the math, figure out, can you actually do this based on the weather conditions that currently exist?
Okay.
You've got the charts. It's a newer Cessna 172 with all those. It's like 10, 20 pages of freaking performance calculation data, right?
Yeah.
Use it.
Okay.
Right? Like, sure, based on your experience, like, you probably can't do it. But like, let's look at the book. What is actually possible, right? Is it going to be a 300 foot per minute climb all the way up there? And I've got to start I got to make sure I start my climb way back here at freaking Gossip.
Yeah.
Maybe. But look at the numbers. Because when the DPE asks, like, 12,000, that's pretty high. Can we make it? You can be like, well, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Or
Could
instead,
you just file
go ahead.
it as like 11.1? Could you just file it as 11.1 since that's the...
ATC is going to ask questions if you do. And you could just say like, hey, I don't have performance for that, right? Because ATC has a minimum vectoring altitude that's not published where they're still going to be able to pick you up on radar.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would file for 12 unless you do the performance calculations and find that 12 isn't actually possible.
Okay.
Right? And you could even bring that up. Be like, hey, look, we're going up to 12. I wouldn't do this flight in the middle of the day. The density altitude doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe
If
5, 6 a.m.
If I genuinely needed to do this route, I would start at 4 o'clock in the morning because that's the only way I'm going to have the density altitude and temperature appropriate for this altitude.
Okay.
Right. And that's genuinely what you do. You know, I got buddies that want me to come and hang out with them over in Seattle, meaning I've got to cross the Rockies coming from Wisconsin. Once I hit Montana, I have to take off at like 3 o'clock in the morning for me to make it through the mountains with the density altitude that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of aeronautical decision making.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Good question though. Right. Just do the math.
Do the math of like the density altitude and like
yes. So figure out what the density altitude would be and go through your climb performance charts, your time, fuel, and distance to climb, your maximum rate of climb chart based on density altitude, and say, hey, yes, this is possible, but once I get above 10,000 feet, I'm going to have a 300 foot per minute climb or a 200 foot per minute climb. And I'm going to have to tell ATC because that's one of the required reports of less than 500 foot per minute climb.
And what would that look like? Like you're en route and you're like, Denver approach, like just a heads up, we can only climb at 200 feet per minute.
That's exactly what you would say. Denver, Denver Center, Cessna 123, unable to maintain 500 foot per minute. Best I can do right now is about 300.
Okay.
And that's all they would say. Okay. There's nobody else down there with you, right?
Yeah.
And that's really why they want to know, right? So let's put it into context of airliners. The CRJ 200 technically has a service ceiling of 41,000 feet. You get above 37,000 feet and you're lucky to maintain 300 feet per minute. That's really where it's intended is, hey, we're in this airplane that sure technically can do 41,000. And since we're up here with all these other traffic up here, ATC needs to know because they could say, hey, climb maintain 41. And if I'm like, oh yeah, sure, they're expecting 500 feet per minute. They've got traffic coming at me opposite direction. They're expecting me to clear them in a certain time frame.
Yeah.
All right. You and your Cessna, there ain't nobody else down there with you. So ATC is going to be like, thanks. They had a good instructor.
Okay, got it.
All right. I know I'm making light of it. There might be other traffic down there. You know, there's FedEx feeders that fly smaller airplanes and stuff like that. But it's mainly for the up in the flight levels and the airliners that really shouldn't be up that high.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Any other questions?
So overall, just review weather, you think?
I would say review weather and crack open the instrument flight or the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. Just go over the old style instruments again. Because again, I know it's probably been a while since you've dug into it at all.
Okay.
All right. Those are my two big ones. Yeah. Now, have you used Discord before? Because I know some people are like, I have no idea what Discord is.
No, I had no idea.
Okay. So this is Discord, right? When you first dropped in, you probably dropped in here to like general, or it might have been the rules and roles request. I went up and did all the stuff that you need for the rules and roles request. But here in the general, this is just anything and everything. You know, you want to say hi to people. That's mainly what this is people saying hi. All right. We got a whole channel specifically for people wanting to share pictures of their kitty cats. The dog people got jealous, so we had to give dog people a chance. Memes, I don't even go in here. They probably drop some heinous stuff. Don't hold me accountable for any of the nonsense they say in this. What you're most likely interested in is this aviation section. So aviation general, right? Any questions about aviation, just anything at all, right? Hey, who's going to this fly-in and wants to meet up and hang out? Stuff like that. Content sharing, right? Of course, be safe. Don't do dumb stuff. Don't go out and do ridiculous nonsense and trying to, get your camera working while you're 100 feet above minimums and blah, blah. Obviously, don't do any of that. But, you see a picture of a cool airplane, you want to share it, share it. Pilot training, you got any questions? Drop them in here. It's not just me as a flight instructor. There's 16 other CFIs in here.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. If you've got a question that might take a little bit more of a conversation than just like a, hey, yes or no. All right. You can come in here and start a whole new thread, right? Instrument ground school recommendations, stuff like that. Right. Aviation news. You got any cool news you want to share? Come share it. Checkride gouge. This is probably what you're most interested in. people come in and they share their Checkride experience. What happened, what went well, what went wrong. You even got this person, they did a screenshot of their whole ADS-B ground track to show what their route looked like for their instrument Checkride. Okay. So come in here, read these. Don't let them scare you or shake you up or anything. We did a mock Checkride. We know where you need to study. But when you do go take your Checkride, come back and tell us about it. See how it went, stuff like that. Flight instructor lounge, you don't have access to that. Resume help, when you do start getting to the point where you're looking for a job and you want someone to dig over your resume, of course, block out personal safety sensitive information like address, phone number, stuff like that. Okay. But drop it in here. Some people will take a look at it. There are some recruiters in here as well. So they're more than happy to take a look at it and tell you where you're going well, where you're going wrong.
Okay.
And then if you want to sit and chat with somebody, if another CFI wants to offer some help, there's a bunch of voice chats down here in the bottom, kind of like we're here in mock check 1.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So just because you did a mock Checkride's over, doesn't necessarily mean instruction is over. If you got questions, it rings into my pocket. But again, there's also 16 other flight instructors in here.
Okay. Cool.
Awesome. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day. Reach out if you got any other questions. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.